from JPA UK, and today, well, I mean it's written here as well, we'll be talking about widening the net and how to capture the older vehicle car park, okay, and how to service it. So the idea, I will start with a few informations from market informations that we collect at JPA UK. And what I want to discuss with you really is, first of all, the impact of, you all know that because on top of having an after-sales department, you have a new car sales department as well. So you've seen these figures, you know them at least as me, probably even better than me. You see, we had in 2019 about 2.3 million of new cars that were sold, and it dipped to by about 700,000 because of COVID, because of lockdown, the closing of the showrooms, essential workers, all that kind of wording that are a bit old now, but that were really much impacting our life back then. So there was about 1.6 million of cars sold in 2020, 700,000 less. That's what we could use as the benchmark year, which was 2019. Having in mind that 2019 we were already on a decline compared to a crazy 2016 year. Okay, so let's keep that 2.3 million in mind. 2021 wasn't much better. We didn't even reach 1.7 million cars, and then the supply issue kicked in, and the new car sales, the new cars became very scarce, and I would say the supply was definitely not meeting the demand. Okay, and that demand, that supply issue, was carried on for 2022. So we had basically 3 years with 700,000 vehicles less per year than before COVID. That, if you add that, that's about 2.1 million of cars that should have been injected on the market new, okay? So from 0 years old, if we can say that, one day maybe, depending on how you count. That didn't happen, okay? So if you add that to what we expect to be about 1.9, probably a bit more than 1.9 million, especially seeing the SMMT figures for October, should be a bit beyond that, but not quite yet back to 2 million. What that means is that we have, I was talking about 1.7 million, if we add the lack of 2023 compared to 2019, 2.4 million of new cars that were not injected on the market, okay? And those 2.4 million of cars not injected on the market, it's like it's basically the population. If they were not there and injected during that year, there will never be. Base case scenario, we could have used import, but those cars are not 0 years old, if we can say that. So really, what I want to show you today on that slide and the next 2 other slides is really the impact that new car sales has on after sales business. And really, the idea here is that when you start in a dealership thinking about after sales, it's generally because it's already too late. Okay? The idea is to have a focus on after sales, which is as important as new car sales, because it tends to be the way to balance out the lack of new car sales is to think more about after sales. But that should be thought forward and 3 years before it even happens. Okay? So that's the idea of what I'm going to show you today. Here, what you have here is the size of the park. Okay, you can see that we had relatively good growth year between 2015 to 2019 period. Okay, there were a total of 2.3 million of cars injected on the market. That's a positive balance if you take the write-off and the new registration. That's plus 2.3 million of vehicles. We don't include sold vehicles in here, just so you're aware. Okay, there was relatively good growth rate for a mature market. We are looking about 1% growth on a year-on-year basis. That's not bad. Okay, of course it's not China where we sell about the equivalent of the car park, the UK car park every year as new car sales, but that's not the same population and the same maturity as well. In 4 years, because of what we just saw with new registration, the park has only increased by 500,000 vehicles. It's nothing. It is about 0.1% year-on-year growth on a yearly basis. Okay, so it's really nothing. But fortunately, thanks to 2023 and what seemed to hopefully will be a good year in 2024, we should get a 3-year period for 2025 to 2027 better than that. Okay, and we're expecting more or less in our forecast that you can see here that we are back to 2.3 million by 2025, but we won't get back to something like 2.6, 2.7 million like we had in 2016. Okay? So here is just some ideas of our forecast, how we see the market and what that means for the growth of the market. Of course, it is still only 800,000 vehicles that will be injected on a 3-year period, so the growth of the market is very, very limited. And if the growth is limited, you need to brace yourself. New car sales are not going to be phenomenal. They are increasing, that's great, but after sales is really important, and you really need to look into after sales, and not only for the 0 to 4 years old vehicles. It is important to look beyond that. I know it's something that has been said for years and years, but this is very key, and the way the lack of registrations since 2020 have shaped the market, this is really the opportunity to look at the 5 to 9 years old car park, potentially even older than that. But let's be realistic, let's start with that one where we can compete. Beyond that, in terms of pricing and so on, it's even more difficult. Okay? If we look in terms now of car park age, very interesting. At the beginning of the year, 1st January or 2nd January this year, we did the forecast for the red dotted line that you can see. Because we didn't know yet how the supply issue would ease or potentially not ease. Okay? So we were expecting that by 2027, the car park would be 9.8 years old, which is crazy. That's about 2 more years or 2 years older than what it was just in 2019. So again, this just shows you the impact of the lack of new car sales. If we look at 2018, 38% of the car park was between 0 and 4 years old. It is now, or it will be next year, about 26%. Okay? So that's minus 12 points in just a few years because of the lack of new registrations. Okay? Thanks to the easing of supply and the fact that we can actually get more sales in at the moment, new car sales, we are actually expecting a 9.5 years old car park by 2027. Okay? And by 2027, 82% of the car park will be 3 years or older. 3 years or older, what does it mean? It means that 82% of the car park will need an MOT on a yearly basis if nothing changes. Of course, you all know, probably you all heard about the MOT consultation from the government. We haven't heard anything since, so we don't know if 311 will stay in place, if it will be 411, 422, 5, we don't know, okay? But what they were potentially assessing was 411, so we start from the 4th year instead of the 3rd, and 511. Let's see, okay? I could tell you our contribution to this, but maybe in questions later, because otherwise I'm going to talk for another 10 minutes. Let's keep that towards the end. So, basically what we see here is that 82% of the car park is going to be 3 years or older. 82% of that car park will need an MOT on a yearly basis, okay? Now the real question is to think about those vehicles that are 3 years and older, outside warranty, potentially outside service plan as well, and often that will be already or will be in a few years' time sold as a used car for the first time, okay? And that's really where the retention is, what's the word, the attrition of the retention is arriving at that moment, when the new car is sold for the first time used. And in the UK, we have a huge used car market. You can hear I'm not British, or at least I wasn't born British. In the French markets, because you probably guessed that as well, we do not sell at all about 7 million used cars every year. It's about 4 or 5 maximum. In Spain, in Italy, they buy a new car, they kill it, okay? The objective is that that's a lifetime investment, they kill it, okay? In the UK, a new car becomes used for the first time, well, just before it's 3 years old. It's completely different because of financing, because of service plan, because of PCP and so on. And that's the moment which is key for you as a dealer to build on the retention, okay? That's very important. So who are those drivers? Here, very simple, we look at a purchasing process and retention map, if we can say that, but it's very important to ask yourself those questions. Who are those drivers? They are generally used car drivers, okay? They buy a car used and not new for some reason. Maybe it's because they are savvy in the way they want to avoid depreciation. Maybe it's because they don't have the money to buy a new car. There are many different reasons and many different profiles. So the idea is to try to understand them and then to understand whether they are aware of you. Are they aware of you? They should be, because out of the 7 million of used cars that are being purchased every year in the UK, more or less 30, 40 are going through the dealer, which is a great opportunity, 30, 40%, sorry. So that's a great opportunity to actually build on the retention at that point. Because if you're handing them the keys, that's the best moment to do something else, to call them back, and so on, okay? So that's very important. Are they aware of you? And they should be. You're carrying the brand of their car, so they should be aware of you. Would they consider you? And what does it take for them to consider you? Okay, that's the very important thing. Often, it's very simple. Why a driver select a repairer? Because of price, because of location, and because of, what's the last one? Confidence, trust, okay? That's not always in the same order, but that top 3 ranking is the same across all the countries we do those surveys, okay? That's always the same, those top 3. Price, trust, and location, okay? Location, it's not necessarily easy because you can't open a dealership in front of everyone's door, okay? So that's not that easy. But trust, there are, of course, can be worked on, and price, in a limit, can be worked on as well, okay? So these are very important. This is what will make those drivers consider you instead of someone else, okay? Then the purchase or the transaction, the repair. That's relatively simple. There are a few things that are very important to make sure that drivers are going to be satisfied with your services as an after-sales provider. The first one is very simple. It's manage expectation. Don't overpromise. Just manage expectation and deliver what you say. That's as simple as that. Of course, I could give more detail again, but in a nutshell, this is what needs to be done, okay? Retention. How do we manage and how do we make sure that once that customer came once, they come back again, okay? How do we do that? We need a CRM approach. We need to be sure to be in touch on a regular basis, and maybe that when they come to see you in the workshop, this is the best time to capture a few information. What's your average mileage on a yearly basis? How often have you changed your tires recently? Okay, just that. If you know their annual mileage, you just seen the state of their tires, more or less you can have an idea of when you need to call them back. Okay, that's as simple as that. There are software that does it very well, but just as a rule of thumb, you could say, okay, I can probably call them back in about, there are 4 millimeter left, maybe I call them back in 6 months. As simple, okay? So retention, what's your retention strategy afterwards? And finally, the support and making sure that they feel supported. MOT reminder, it's very simple, it's once a year. When you have the vehicle registration number, you know when is the next MOT due. So that's very simple way of making their life easier, okay? And this is all about making their life easier. Those drivers, it's important, they don't have, for most of them, service plans. Okay? They might have bought used car service plans, but not in the same proportion as new car driver. New car driver, for them, after sales is sorted. For the first years of the car, it's part of the transaction. Okay? They don't have even to worry about it or to think about it. They just come back whenever they get that service reminder. It's not at all the same for those drivers. So that's the other very important point that you need to have in mind for those drivers. And finally, we have done many focus groups on this as well. Often, especially for older cars drivers, they tend to see the dealership as, I don't know what's a good analogy, they're wearing a Swatch watch, and they see it as a Rolex shop. They're wearing a Swatch, they don't want to get in, they are afraid to come in, or they're almost ashamed to come in it, they're not sure they are welcome, and so. So that's also very important, the proximity. Okay? The proximity, and some very simple things would be maybe to support the community, support the local football club, support the local fete of the town that you live in, if we can say that, or the dealership is in, arrange some barbecue during the summer. Very simple things that make you closer to the people, okay? As simple as that, if I can say that. It's easy to say it in front of you, it's a bit harder to deliver it, of course. And finally, if we think about the dealer's operation, because of course, if you think about widening the net, as we said, that means capacity, okay? Potentially, you're already very full. and everyone is very full at the moment in terms of after-sales work. So yes, you should go and try to widen the net, but it's also important to think about, am I able to widen the net? Because do I have the capacity to get those extra customers in? Because the idea of what we are saying today is not for you to forget about your current customers, it's just to widen the portfolio, okay? So of course, there is now, I was about to say thanks. I don't think that's a thanks. Maybe because of the MOT change or exemption during 2020, we have a very off-balance market seasonality with a big dip in terms of MOT needed in March, in May, and we used to have more or less the first 6 months of the year, 50% of MOT are expiring there, and then the other 6 months are the other 50%. We are looking at about 40-60 at the moment. It's easing thanks to car getting older and new registration that are still very big in March, but still the market is very off balance. So the market seasonality, is really a challenge to be able for you to plan ahead your after sales operation, your workshop operation. The other one is shortage of staff. I think it's the case in any industry that you're asking, farming, AGV drivers, after sales, car after sales, everywhere there is a shortage of staff, of qualified staff. Everyone has the same issue, okay? Every kind of workshops has your issue, which is finding staff that are reliable, that are skilled, and that wants to stay and grow within your company. That's the same everywhere. However, you carry a national brand. And for you, from research we've done, it is easier for dealers knows where to find apprentices, for example, in a bigger proportion. Independent garage, they have no idea where to look for them, in most cases, and they don't necessarily have a brand that they can carry when they knock at the university, at the college that are local to yours. You have that strength of a national brand or even an international brand that is very important and that you should use to develop apprenticeship and grow your own talent. Okay? Part supply, we know it's an issue, like new car supply was an issue as well. It is getting better. We can still see quite a lot of backlog in part supply. Generally speaking, I'm not even thinking of brands that have some issues, some very specific issues at the moment, but generally speaking, it is an issue. Okay, so that's everyone knows it. How do we make sure that in our planning, in our planification, it doesn't affect too much our work? That's really what you need to have in mind when thinking about that. And finally, and I could have added maybe another 10 points, but again, for the sake of timing, let's keep it short. Competitiveness. If you think again about those 3 selection criteria, price, location, and trust. How do we get competitive versus our competitor that are mainly national chain and independent workshops that are very local to those drivers? Okay? And I don't have the answer now today, but definitely this is the question you should ask yourselves to make a plan and to potentially, if you think that's a good idea, widen the net and go a bit further. Okay? That's all for me. I will now pass the microphone to to Paul. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can you hear that at the back okay? Everybody all right? Yep. Before we get started, I'm going to take you a little bit on a history lesson at the moment and make something very clear. That everything we talk about now in the next 15 minutes, you'll probably know. The problem is, are we going to do anything about it? Rather than the experts is probably sitting in the room, but we have some choices to make over the next few years. I would like to, the elephant in the room, I'd like to start with, if I may. As you probably noticed online, my title is Head of Secret Service. Before anybody starts, please bear in mind that the Head of Secret Service was Judi Dench. Okay? So if we can start with that bit, because I'm probably more like Judi Dench than I am Daniel Craig. So let's just get that one out in the open, and then I'm not going to take any more flack for a title that I never asked for in the first place. But anyway, I'm going to take you back to November 2020. Now, why am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to do it because this wasn't here then. This was virtue. In virtual terms, this is the reason why. Because we had a situation, obviously, that affected all our lives in one way or another. And so this particular presentation was done online. And I just wanted to touch base with what we talked about in November 2020. So it wasn't live, it was on video, as I say, and we talked about capacity. We talked about the market. We talked about all the things that probably in the next half an hour I'm going to be talking about. And the question to ask really is, when we were going through this and looking at it, what's changed? The only thing that's changed is we're closer to that cliff point where we're not going to see those vehicles being driven by new car sales. And what we were talking about in 220 is that very point, that the car park was going to get older and older and older. And sometimes reflecting on that is a good thing, as we did then. So to summarize, what we talked about was there's been a 40% decline of 0 to 3-year-old customers coming in, 600 million in lost revenue. We talked about 44% of the segment, not only, that's all we were getting at the time. We talked about customers not considering us. Independents and fast fits own 70% of the older marketplace. We talked about all these things, and Gavin Ruddick presented it virtually. That was 3 years ago. We're now getting close to when all that lack of car sales in new cars is going to be coming through the system. It's there. Now at the moment, as we've just talked about, we're busy. We've got lack of capacity of technicians, we've got lack of ramps, we've got cars. I went to a dealership the other day, there were 130 electric cars waiting for parts. You couldn't have bought a car if you'd have wanted to, because you couldn't have parked there. We know the issues, but I promise you, and you will know this, and that's why I said the experts are in the room, this is going to hit us, and it's going to hit us middle of next year earliest, and we'll start to see changes. Because if there's no capacity coming through for new cars, you're going to have to look at the older car park, or we're going to have to cut down our operations, and we want growth, not just consistency. So have we moved on? Have you moved on? Have we answered some of those questions? Not everybody is in the same boat, but the challenges of the ones we've just been looking at are here. They're exactly the same. The only one I've added to that is the EV market growth. Now, I don't know where you sit on that. I have conversations sometimes over a couple of glasses of wine with people in industry, and I have a couple of glasses of wine with people out of the industry. And it's amazing how when you get into this bubble of electric cars, you've got some people who are really telling us how positive it is, and some in reverse. My own feeling, for what it's worth, is I think there's going to be a longer lead time between the transition of petrol and diesel and people buying electric cars. For one, I'm now sitting in a 5-year-old car that's done half the mileage it should have done because of COVID. I'm very happy with it, and I'm going to keep it. I'm going to keep it until the marketplace starts to balance out a little bit. I know what I've got to pay for a new one. I see the entrants coming in from the Far East, and why do I need to change? And whichever way you look at it, you're going to have petrol and diesel and hybrid vehicles to 2040 plus, because people will not move. The only thing is, electric vehicles will become a bigger part of that new car sales. And so the opportunity to make revenue from cars that are 0 to 3 years old will get less and less. So kicking and screaming, we are going to have to look at 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, and 7-year-old, maybe even 10-year-old cars, because those are the customers that eventually will buy the new ones. If we look at the marketplace, and that's pretty self-explanatory, we're seeing where the marketplace is at its biggest. And that target area is smack in the middle. I was yesterday with a leasing company, and they were suggesting that that target will move, and we're going to see more 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old cars than 4, 5, 6 ones as it moves down the line. Now, you may have an opinion on that, that's fine. But as I said, I think you know the answers. It's maybe what we've got to do about it that's becoming a bit of a problem. Competition. They've got 70% of that 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old market already. And then you introduce into that Haver setting up networks on electric vehicles. They consider that market theirs, and I've got no problem with that. I've got lots of colleagues in the independent market sector, so I understand that. But they'll just take more of it. So we have to look at what we're doing in that particular sector of the marketplace, and it's getting bigger, not smaller. Now, why has this happened? Well, let's look at this. I've been around this industry years, maybe too many years, some might say in this room. However, what that has given me is a knowledge base, and that knowledge base says the way our model works is we sell a car and then it goes through the system. We collect the data, we service it, we have service plans, and then when it gets to 3 years old, they swap, they change, and they buy another car, and the cycle starts all over again. So it's self-perpetuating, or has been for the last 20, 30 years. That's our model, that's the way we've done it. And we're going to have a culture shift if we're going to change our attitude towards this about what is actually representing a customer to us. But our customers have always come in through the car sales door, whereas I believe, and we'll get to this, our new customers are going to come through the after sales door. And if we don't do that bit right, they're never going to buy another new car from us. And that's what we need to look at. So the process was, sell a new car, used car, 2 to 3 year old maybe, preparation, warranty work, servicing, ongoing maintenance, customer retention, part exchange, sell another new car. Kept filling the bucket all the time, except it isn't going to do that in the next 4 or 5 years. It's not going to fill that bucket. So if I look at where I think it's going to go over the next few years, after sales bookings, stop looking at it as a booking. It's not a booking, it's a customer. Just the way we would do that if we were marketing a sales customer. This is a customer, and it might only be an MOT, and you're going to get lots more of them. Now you might want to turn them down because they don't make enough money. But if you don't get that bit, you're not going to get the other bit either. So look at MOTs, maybe have a couple of separate people who just do that, because that's going to be an opening point into your relationship maybe with that particular customer who's never used you before. And it's conquest business we're going to need. We're going to see used cars 2 to 10 years old, not 1 to 3. We're going to have ICE, we're going to have EV, hybrid, petrol and diesel, as I said, 240 plus. We're going to be seeing all of that. Need to look at servicing, fast lanes, mobile, workshops. I put a couple of names up on the board, the RAC and AA. How much roadside assistance can be done with electric vehicles? They've got all those vans, they've got all those technicians, all those engineers. Where's the obvious place to go to keep that business afloat? And if it's electric vehicles, they can do it on your driveway. We've got to start to customer retention, service plans, parts, customer retention, part exchange, and then back into the after sales model. That's where we're going. I was with, as I say, a leasing company yesterday, and a lot of those vehicles you're going to see in electric, by the way, will be leased. And if they're leased, you're going to have a separate situation with that as well. And then there's the customers we don't know about. I was talking to an OEM, a big OEM, I won't mention the name, in case somebody's sitting in the room here. And they said, well, we don't need to worry about this, do we? Because the cars now tell us when they need a service. And I said, yep. And he said, and the cars tell us when they've had a service. And I said, yep. And I said, do they tell you when I'm sat with a glass of red wine on a Saturday night looking for someone to do my service? No. And so you need to know when these customers are in market. I was always told it's not just about selling something to somebody, it's about when it's relevant to sell something to somebody. So you need to know when those customers are in market and ready to have their vehicle looked at, serviced, MOT'd, and you need to be on the front foot. Because from the point of view of where we are in Secret Service, nobody comes to us to window shop. Nobody says, oh, let's go on Amazon and have a look around it. When they come onto our site, they come on to book a service. So you have to be in the marketplace to get them at the time when they're ready to do so. Okay, now this is a beef of mine, and I've been sort of talking about this on social media, and I headed it up after sales, really, because what the after sales suggests to me is it's after the Lord Mayor's show. And if I had my way, I'd scrap the term after sales now. I want you to look about what we do in after sales is actually the acquisition of a new customer. Not after sales, because you're not going to see all those customers because you haven't been selling. you've got to see what we get into after sales as a potential new customer. I'd rather have called it the beginning of the next sale as opposed to after sales. It just doesn't mean anything in today's marketplace. We need you to be more proactive and think of that booking as a customer for life. We also know, of course, that we have a lack of technicians, and we also know where we are. It is masking the long-term problem. And I know that some stage next year, or maybe 3 months after that, the cliff is going to happen. And as a company, we will probably get lots of phone calls saying, we need to do this next month. I need more bookings. Too late. We need to start looking at this now. Because if it all happens all at once, there's not going to be enough people to do it. You've got to start looking at where we need to be going forward. Do we view after sales as the end of the car sale? I've just said that, although we just talk about it. When it comes to EV petrol, diesel and hybrid, the market's going to be longer than 240. We need to respect, we need to train new technicians and provide a career for them. Maybe a hard one to swallow. We've got youngsters coming through, they're looking for a path, an increase in salary, increase in conditions, and unfortunately, like my generation, they're not willing to work 60 hours a week to do it. That's the way it is, and the marketplace is changing. I have teenage and older children, and the marketplace is changing. We also maybe need to look for a slightly different type of person. When I was going through my corporate career, when I got to a certain level, guess what? They gave me a PA, and they gave me an IT department, and they gave me somebody who wrote letters. Guess who has to do with all his own letters, PA, spreadsheets, and everything else today? So our roles are becoming much bigger in terms of whatever we do. And a technician today needs to be a people person, a car person, and understand that they have to do videos, they have to do all sorts of other bits and pieces. So they're going to have customer contact. And so we need to look at what's going forward, the type of people we use. And the right technician, the right work. You don't need a master tech to do certain parts of the work. So make sure you've got the right person doing the right job, and then it will be easier to fill the capacity issue because you've got a bit of a choice. Less retail customers, more lease customers as EV matures. I said to you that I was with a company yesterday, I was with a leasing company. It doesn't matter who it was, it was Octopus. And I got their take on where they think the marketplace is going and the growth. And it's phenomenal. But that will have an effect on whether it's a retail market or a lease car market. Do we view after sales booking as just a booking or a customer? Is the structure in the department right for the future? And do we really want to change? Do we? Do we really want to do it, or are we happy where we are? Or would we like to do so? I remember somebody telling me something once which was interesting about Rolex. And I remember a Japanese guy going to Rolex and saying, I've invented this watch, and this watch is quartz crystal. It's more accurate than what you make, it's better than what you make, and it will never lose time. And it only costs £22. And what Rolex said to them was, go away and don't darken our doorstep again. Don't come to us telling us how we should do our business. We've got 95% of the marketplace, and you're coming here with no knowledge whatsoever and telling us that we've got it wrong. Well, we all know what happened then. They're now niche, and it's taken them nearly 30 years to get back. Whereas Seiko of Japan, where the guy went second, said, we've got nothing to lose, we'll change. And we've got to look at what we're doing as people in the business. So, the last thing as you walk around here, you will see lots and lots of alternatives with regards to technology. Oh, we can call it omni-channel, we can call it this, we can call it like, what we're really saying is lots of ways of people getting into our businesses now. Are you making the maximum use of the technology that you're going to see around here? Because if you're not allowing your people to do what they should be doing, which is talking to customers. So you've got to make, and AI will be big. We've got lots of customers who are using AI now for texts and that kind of thing, and it's working really well for them. So today wasn't about maybe telling you something you didn't know. it was referring back to what we've been talking about for the last 4 years, and please don't leave it any longer, because if you do, you could see that cliff edge coming up on you very quickly, and we don't want that to be the case, okay? Right, we were given some questions before we started. Very aware of the time, we've got about 7 minutes. If anybody else has any, I'll just sort that. If anybody else has any questions as well, please ask away. So, can franchise dealers be a one-stop shop for servicing? Can franchise dealers be a one-stop shop for servicing? Of course they can. Don't forget, we used to do tyres, we used to do windscreens, we used to do all those bits, and we said, no, we don't want that anymore, we'd much sooner just do this bit. This is much nicer, we'll just do some warranty work. We used to do these things, and we stopped doing it. But we can do it, it's whether we choose to do so. And what did I say? Where are our customers going to come from in the future, if not from the sales department? And would you go back to a restaurant, no matter how nice, if it didn't service you well? Why would you buy a car from somebody you can't trust to service it? Tyres, MOT, exhaust, etc. have been key leakage points, but some of the big challenges for profit because there's not a lot of money in it. True? True. If you look at it in isolation. If you just look at it as a job, that's absolutely right. But MOT, you're making a fortune out of MOTs? Probably not. But if there's work to be done and you can sell on to that, then that's the way we've got to start looking at it. What does the industry seemingly continue to struggle with? Short-termism and failing to predict and plan for future market changes. I can't answer that one. That's you and that's all of us. But has it not always been the way? I remember in an earlier career in the financial situation, standing on a stage like this, slightly bigger, talking about the FLA. And when we were talking about the FLA, at the end of it, there was maybe 500-600 people in the room. A guy, I always could guarantee what the first question was. And he put the hand up, I say, yeah, okay, how do we get round this? How do we not have to do it? We've got to change, whether we like it or not. Can the industry break the change cycle? Yes, it can. We can do it if we want to do it. And if dealers continue to leak segment 2 vehicles from their after-sales park, how long will the impact last and the share of EVs increase in workshops? Well, you've probably got your own opinion on that. And as I say, I don't want to go into it. I have a group of friends who have nothing to do with our industry. If you talk to them about EV, they have a totally different outlook than when I talk to people inside the industry about EV. A lot of them have got maybe more than one car, and they're willing to sort of maybe give one arm and have a small EV, but they're keeping their petrol and their diesel as well. And if they continue to do that, then obviously only a third of the cars are going to get sold. So they're kind of like placing their bets. They're not going all the way across. That was all the questions we had up here. Does anybody have any for either of us up here on the stage while we're here? Oh, no.
Hi there. I'm interested in, so as a customer with an older car, following the kind of market activity of recent years, who may have bought outside franchise networks, will often have a perception that the franchise dealer with their beautiful big shiny showroom is going to be way above their pay grade. I'm interested in hearing from both of you, how can franchise dealers combat that? How do they make them more welcoming and more attractive to a customer who typically thinks they're the Fred in the shed down the road customer as opposed to a franchise dealer service customer?
Do you want to start that, Quentin, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I can. Yes, thank you very much for the question. I think first, the important first point really is, as we mentioned, competitiveness in different areas. First of all, need to attract the customer and then to be competitive. We live in a moment where we hear about inflation and the cost of living crisis every day. It is essential to have a targeted approach to those customers who indeed do not necessarily have the same means as the not too far customers. So it is important to have some potential to be able to have maybe older vehicles service plans, to be able to offer some financing proposition, okay, to be able to have monthly installment for something that is bigger than usual, a clutch, shock absorbers, whatever it could be. So it is very important to look at the sets of services that you have already for new cars and younger vehicles, and to see how this can affect and how it can be impacted on those elder cars drivers. So it's not going to be the same answers. That's what is important. It needs a tailored approach, and that's why I use that wheel, if we can say that in my slide. We need to re-ask those questions again. Of course, those questions you've already answered them and asked yourself those questions for younger car drivers, but it needs to be the same again for elder cars vehicles.
My own feeling is it's not the premises, it's the people. We depend how we treat the people. As an example, I knew someone that went into a Volkswagen dealer group with an old Scirocco, but the Scirocco was mint. It was nearly 15 years old when it came in to the garage. And the salesman looked out the door and saw the car there, and the guy came in and he said, I'm interested in a new Golf. And the salesman said, is that your Scirocco? He said, yeah. He said, well, don't you think maybe you should go into a nearly new rather than a new car? And I couldn't believe that at first. However, I have been in businesses where people have gone, walked out the back. This guy can never buy a car off us. And I don't think that's any different in after sales. If you start having somebody come in with a 6 or 7 year old car to an after sales department and you treat them like they're somehow less important than the guy with the 2-year-old car, then I think, yes, you're absolutely right, it would be intimidating. But I don't think younger people are intimidated by nice buildings and nice places. It's what we're used to. We see it online, we see it everywhere. It's about the people and how they're treated. I'll tell you this much though, they won't buy a car from you if you don't try to treat them properly. So it's about how we treat those customers, not as a second-class citizen. That's the key.
If I may, can I add one more thing, sorry, on the questions? Is it okay? Yes? Okay. On tires, about the question we had earlier on tires. Something very important, because we mentioned that, we mentioned electric cars a bit earlier, and we mentioned tires and a one-stop shop. That's very important to have this in mind. We didn't include too much of electric cars in there because you would have stepped there otherwise, but electric cars, tires change is key because of the weight of the vehicle and the torque that is available and so on. So tires is going to become essential in your after-sales revenue in the coming years because of electric cars. So it is important. Yes, it's not a lot of revenue, and the British tire market is terrible. It's one of the cheapest markets with all those budget brands and so on. It is terrible, I know that, and it is not very what's the word, profitable to do tires in your dealership. I know that, but this is essential that in terms of awareness, if we look at that wheel again, you are seen by your customers, by your potential customers, as a valid option for tire change. And you need to start now to educate them now before they switch to an electric car and it's already too late for them to come back to you for tires. So really, tires, I can't emphasize that enough. It is key, and it will play such an important role that you should start now wondering, asking yourself, how do I make tires profitable for my business? Maybe it's part of a bigger offer, and with the add-on and additional work that we will do, you don't have to make too much on tires themselves, but really ask yourself how we make that profitable and how we use it for additional revenue, because tires is going to be key in the next 5 to 10 years old. 10 years. 10 years.
Thank you very much indeed for your time. We appreciate it. It's very kind.